Please bow our head and put ourselves in the presence of the Lord. Lord Jesus, as we enter this training hall, we bring your presence with us. We speak your peace, your grace, and your perfect order into the atmosphere of this room. We acknowledge your lordship over all that will be spoken, taught, decided, and accomplished within this day. Lord Jesus, we thank you for the gifts you have given to each one of us. We do not take them lightly, but we commit in using them responsibly and well. Give us fresh supply of truth and beauty to which we draw our strength in doing our job. Anoint our creativity, our ideas, and our energy, so that even our smallest tasks may bring our honor. Lord, when we're confused, guide us. When we're worried, energize us. Lord, when we're burned out, infuse us with the light of your Holy Spirit. May the work that we do and the way that we do bring hope, life, and courage to all that we come into contact with. And Lord, even this day, most stressful moments, may we find rest in you. In your strong and powerful name, we pray. Amen. We come into contact with. And Lord, even this day, most stressful moments, may we find rest in you. In your strong and powerful name, we pray. Amen.
Good day, everyone. Welcome to the free webinar on the preparation of transfer pricing documentation. Today is June 22, 2021, and our webinar will last for 2 hours, until 12 o'clock in the afternoon. We would like to shout out on the participants who have signed in today. We have Abad Annabel Mulanda from, wala siya address now. Absalud Elena from Caloocan City, Bencio Raisa, La Trinidad Benguet, Bernabe Rose Ann from Umingan, Pangasinan, Bugarin Maika May, Olongapo City, Kakayan Christian Brian from San Carlos City, Pangasinan, Corrado Shermaine, Mandaluyong City, Dicadis Ryan, Pavia, Iloilo. Doroy Mary Jane, Makati City. Famalo and April Ann, Novaliches, Quezon City. Formoso Alessandro Ray, Antipolo City. Frias Erica, Anambungan, Basista, Pangasinan. Galiema Raisel, Villasis, Pangasinan. Lalas Angel Rhea, Mangaldan, Pangasinan. Lyson Michael, Imus Cavite. Lucero Karen K, Cainta Rizal. Luciano Michelle, Cainta Rizal. Magnaye Eugenia, Quezon Province. Candelaria, Quezon Province. Magnaye Merdel, San Jose, Batangas. Mamitis Bonifacio, Kasambagan, Cebu City. Marciano Jessica, Calamba City, Laguna. Uchavi Kathleen Grace, Baguio City. Perez Michael, Taguig City. Rada Maria Florenza, Ginubatan, Albay. Salisa Arlene, San Jose del Monte, Bulacan. Salvamante Jenebeth, Sampaloc, Manila. Santiago Jacqueline, Dagupan City, Pangasinan. Santueco Carlo Magno, Canumay West, Valenzuela City. Sobarjaga Chuchi, Cagayan de Oro City. Tinapunan Leonardo, Zamboanga City. Torrio Rina Castro, Binmali, Pangasinan. Vergara Michael Angelo, San Mateo, Rizal. We have Gascon Norwayne. Wala silang mga address, no? Bago lang sila nag-register. Ferrer K. Ann, Macapagal Dona, Lonon Bernadette, si Ma'am Bernadette Lonon, matagal na to, no? Silvestri Marioni, Sanchez Linlen, Sampayan Marialo, Belera May Pauline, Ponchoso Esterlina Jr., RG Bustamante, si Ma'am RG. Always, thank you, Ma'am RG. Ramos Monica, si Ma'am RG, graduate na natin siya ng Certificate Program in Transfer Pricing, no? So, update na lang sa kanya to. Ramos Monica, Soriano Jeff, Alcantara Jenny Joy. Walang pangalan tong isa, hindi complete. Okay. So, shout out, no, sa lahat ng mga viewers natin. Okay. And we'll proceed with the free webinar, the preparation of transfer pricing documentation. And as we have done in the previous, we will have a question and answer after the webinar at 12, no? So yung may mga questions pa, you can stay, but those na wala naman, then pwede na po kayong umalis, you are free, no? Okay, so free webinar, the preparation of transfer pricing documentation, which I consider the most important job of an accountant or an insider of the company, no? Yung mga in charge of the preparation of the documents. So our topic would be on the 2017 OECD Transfer Pricing Guidelines, the three-third approach on documentation, which are the master file, local file, and the country-by-country reporting. And then we will have our Revenue Regulations 2-2013, the Transfer Pricing Guidelines. As I understand, Hari, lahat sila nabigyan na ng PowerPoint, no? For those na wala pang PowerPoint, please email or chat sa YouTube channel natin para mapadalhan po kayo ng handouts. So we also have the RAMO 1 2019 Transfer Pricing Audit Guidelines. We will discuss the requirements of the BAR once you are under transfer pricing audit. And this is the most important, the RR 34-2020, which is the latest requirements, the attachment to the annual income tax return of those taxpayer with related party transactions. No, hindi naman lahat ng taxpayers are required to attach BAR Form 1709 on their annual income tax return. Yun lang may mga related party transactions and with certain threshold, no? So titingnan natin yan mamaya dito sa RR 34-2020. Since our topics are very broad, no? At saka mahaba. So expect na bilisan po natin, no? So if you cannot catch up, please review nyo na lang yung inyong PowerPoint. Okay. So we have the OECD three-third documentation requirements. This OECD transfer pricing guidelines for multinational enterprises and tax administration, the latest is July 2017. You can download this in the internet, no? Free naman po siya in PDF form. So that you can have knowledge on the transfer pricing guidelines itself aside from the documentation requirements. Okay. So the master file, the information that should be included in the master file are the organizational structure. No? So what is an organizational structure? It is a chart, no? Illustrating the MN's legal and ownership structure and geographical location of operating entities. So the organizational structure will start at the top, the parent company or the ultimate parent, and then followed by the parent, followed by the subsidiaries, and then their location, no? The geographic location or their address or their countries where they are located. It is very informative, especially if you are the ones making a transfer pricing analysis. At least makita mo na kaagad-agad the structure of the company, no? The relationship, ilan ba sila ng mga group of companies, and then their functions. No? Makikita mo yan sa organizational structures. And then we have the description of M&E's business, the multinational enterprises, or the taxpayers with related parties. No? So what are the general written description of M&E's businesses? Ito yung important drivers of business profit. Ano yung important drivers of business profit? Usually these are business name, these are product quality, these are assurance, no? Product assurance na itong product namin are genuine at saka maganda yung product namin at saka kilala na siya at saka parang sa mga consumer may demand na siya, no? May market share na. So what are the important drivers of business profit? You have to disclose that in transfer pricing documentation. That's why ang experience ko, there are so many businesses na hindi sila basta-basta nagbibigay ng transfer pricing documentation because of the privacy issue, no? Why? Kasi you show it all, parang hinubaran mo na yung company mo because of the transfer pricing documentation that you show. Imagine yung important drivers mo, business profits na yan yung buhay ng negosyo mo and then in-show mo sa documentation, no? So important drivers of business profit, you should document it and show it in your documentation. A description of the supply chain for the group's 5 largest products. Why 5 largest products? Because if the company is a manufacturing company manufacturing thousands of products, then only 5 largest products and or service offerings by turnover plus any other products and or services amounting to more than 5% of group turnover. So yun yung mga malaki lang yung contribution sa company. The required description could take the form of a chart or a diagram. So depende na po yan sa inyo how you present it. A list and brief description of important service arrangements between members of the M&E group other than research and development. Why other than research and development? Because the research and development has its own requirement. No? So including description of the capabilities of the principal locations, providing important services and transfer pricing policies for allocating services cost and determining prices to be paid for intra-group services. Lahat yan, pagdating na po sa transfer pricing analysis, may mga bearing lahat yan. No? Sa analysis, especially if the case already reaches the court, may bearing po lahat yan. Kung baga sa ano, interconnected yan sila sa buong study. Another is a description of the main geographic markets for the group's products and services that are referred to in the second bullet points above. Why geographic market is very important? Because it has an effect on the economic conditions of the company, no? Yung geographic market. A brief written functional analysis describing the principal contributions to value creation by individual entities within the group. No? So within the group. Ano yun? Functional analysis. Why? Functions are very important. Sa comparability factors, meron tayo doon na functions, assets, and risks. So functional analysis are very important. Sa comparability analysis, we have a free webinar on how to make comparability analysis and comparability adjustments. I-tackle po natin ulit yan yung functional analysis or the FAR analysis, which is functions, assets, and risks. Why? Because function of the company is very important because the moment the function changes, then the company, halimbawa, took business restructuring, so mag-iiba na siya. Halimbawa, yung company from a full-time distributor, naging commissioner na lang siya or agent na lang siya. So, ang laki ng diferensya ng kanyang sales, no? Instead na may sales siya na milyon-milyon as full distributor, since hindi na credited sa kanya yung sales dahil commission na lang siya or agent na lang siya, then sobrang laki ng sales na nawawala sa kanya. And of course, yung taxes na mawala. No? So pagdating naman sa multinational company, laki naman ng savings nila. No? But pagdating sa tax authority, ang laki mawawala na tax. No? So very important po yung function. So there should be a brief written functional analysis describing the principal contributions to value creation by individual entities within the group. So you have to show the key functions performed, the important risks assumed, and important assets used. Lahat yan, pagdating po sa comparability analysis natin and then the comparability adjustments, itong risk, itong assets, risk assumed at saka yung assets employed at saka yung functions, pag nag-change yan, mag-change din ang buong structure ng company. So a description of important business restructuring transactions, acquisitions, and divestitures occurring during the fiscal year. In the Philippines, business restructuring are regulated. No? Sino nagre-regulate sa kanila? The Philippine Competition Commission, which is the equivalent of the antitrust law in the US. And this Philippine Competition Commission started in 2015, which is the commitment of President Noynoy Aquino to the ASEAN. No? Kasi ito yung pinaka-antitrust law ng Philippines. So anong ginagawa niya? Nire-regulate niya yung business restructuring wherein there is a certain threshold when the company acquires another company and the amount, there is a certain limit, no? Just like 5 billion halimbawa yung involved, hindi sila pwedeng mag-restructure. There should be a permit or approval coming from the Philippine Competition Commission. No? And I understand na yung tinututukan ngayon ng Philippine Competition Commission are the pharmaceutical companies. Bakit? Because of the COVID-19, no, of the pandemic. Sinong mga companies ngayon na namamayagpag? The pharmaceutical companies. All others, mahina lang. No? Yung food companies, yes, kasi yung demand for food is still there. Pero yung other companies na tinamaan, hindi sila masyado, just like transportation, just like hotel, resort, and restaurant, hindi sila masyado. But pharmaceutical companies, that's why for business restructuring purposes ng pharmaceutical, tinututukan po sila. And there should be approval coming from the Philippine Competition Commission before they can push through with their restructuring or acquisition of another companies. No? Kasi pag wala, hindi matutuloy po yung restructuring. Okay, so M&S intangibles. General description of the M&S overall strategy for the development, ownership, and exploitation of intangibles, including location of principal research and development facilities and location of research and development management. Alam nyo, sa mga multinational companies, sa mga big companies, research and development ang buhay nila. Why? Because they continue to innovate and their innovation is being done through research and development. Kasi pag hindi ka nag-innovate, patay na yung product mo, patay na yung business mo. That's why yung buhay nila nasa research and development. That's why research and development is a very, very important activity ng isang company. That's why, since yan ang buhay niya, dyan din titingnan ng transfer pricing audit kung anong ginagawa niya and then the strategies employed in the research and development. Kasi dyan mag-uumpisa na yung pag-develop niya ng product hanggang sa i-exploit na niya at nagiging intangible assets na niya. Why? Kasi itong product ng research and development, usually just like software, just like a new product, innovations, no, technology, they are all intangibles. That's why dito sa atin, sa Pilipinas, with your help, matrigger na natin or ipang-initiate na tayo with the companies na makapaglagay na tayo ng intangibles or we have to disclose intangibles in our financial statements. Because if you try to look at the financial statements po ngayon ng maraming companies, maraming individuals, wala pong nakadisclose na intangibles. No? And intangibles are very important. List of intangibles or groups of intangibles of the M&E group that are important for transfer pricing purposes and which entities legally own them. Because the next question for intangibles are the beneficial ownership and the legal ownership. Yun yung suggestion that I presented on the WIPO, World Intellectual Property Office based in Switzerland on the international convention nila noong 2016, no? And I'm so happy kasi na-answer nila. Ngayon may mga disclosures na, pati sa SEC, may mga disclosures na on the beneficial and legal ownership ng mga companies. No? Kaya madali na. Kaysa yung dati, wala lang, no? Yung mga intangibles in the name of the employee, ang company ang nag-i-exploit, pero wala mang royalty payments yung employees, no? So, at least, well-defined na ngayon. List, sa master file pa rin tayo kaya nga sabi ko sa inyo, bilisan natin because yung 2 hours is very short. A list of important agreements among identified associated enterprises related to intangibles, including cost contribution arrangement, principal research, service agreements, and license agreements. So these are also intangibles, no? At sa intangibles, meron kayong research and service agreements dyan or license agreements. Sasabihin nila, we are related parties so we don't have agreements. Huwag kayong maniwala. Or if you are the accountant of the company, you have to work it along with your legal counterpart, no? So yung sa mga meeting ninyo, you have to suggest talaga that the research service agreements even between related parties should have contract, no? Should be put in writing. May mga agreements talaga yan. And ito pa, isa, no? Sa mga lawyers na kasabayan ko minsan sa mga meeting with clients, I always remind them to be very specific in their drafting of agreements or contracts, no? Such that walang loophole, walang gray area when it comes to taxes. It should be na maliwanag na yung provisions doon about taxes. Sa for purposes of transfer pricing naman, it should be arm's length. Lahat ng provisions yun dyan, dapat arm's length. Ano yun say arm's length? Ano yun? The agreement between related parties should be the same with that of the agreements between independent parties. Kasi yan ang purpose ng transfer pricing, arm's length principle. At yan ang ipapakita natin dito sa ating documentation. No? So, in the case of Coca-Cola, bakit natalo yung Coca-Cola versus IRS? Because they have agreements between their subsidiaries or related parties which are not enforceable. Bakit? Walang price, wala ano, kulang-kulang. So, form pa lang ng kanilang contracts or agreements, hindi napapasa. But there is also a case of yung sa Canada na case na medyo tagilid na kung ako ang magsa-size up or mag-evaluate dun sa case. Medyo tagilid sila But because they have a good documentation, panalo pa rin sila. No? Why they have a good documentation? Everything has been documented. Lahat ng sales nila has been properly accounted for. Lahat ng mga transactions nila properly documented and disclosed in the financial statements. So any question, any gray area, nasasagot ka agad nandyan. So ibig sabihin, ready sila, disclosed lahat. So pagdating na sa korte, panalo sila. No? A general description of the group's transfer pricing policies related to research and development and intangibles. Ito yung transfer pricing policies. Ang dami nang nagtatanong sa akin, Ma'am, what do we do with our transfer pricing policies? Ano dapat ang transfer pricing policies nyo? Increase your gross profit rate, especially if you are using the cost plus method. So yung cost plus method nyo, ang cost plus nyo is 7%, 10%. Hindi yan arm's length, no? Because the company will not survive with that kind of gross profit. Kasi ang gross profit mo, dyan mo pa kukunin yung operating expenses mo and also your operating profit. Paano ka pa mag-profit sa 10% mula na markup? And that is not arm's length. No? General description of any important transfer of interest in intangibles among associated enterprises during the fiscal year concerned, including the entities, countries, and compensation involved. Ang dami nito na gumagawa, no? Yung transfer of interest nila, yung mga big companies na nagkakaroon na ng cases in court, saan nila dinadala yung kanilang mga newly formed companies. And then yung tina-transfer nila doon sa IP companies nila, yung mga intangibles nila, then pay royalties. Dinadala nila doon sa mga tax haven countries or those countries with a very low rate of corporate income tax. So, benefited sila. No? Lalabas yan sa documentation natin. Okay. MLS intercompany financial activities. General description of how the group is financed, including important financing arrangement with unrelated lenders. Itong financing, we have 2020 transfer pricing guidelines on financial transactions. No? So, if you have time, basahin nyo yan. Nandyan din available sa internet. The identification of any members of the MNE group that provide central financing function for the group, including the country under whose laws the entity is organized, and the place of effective management of such entity. No? So ito yung mga terms of the day. Ito yung sinasabi na effective management. Ano ba yung effective management? Doon siya, nandoon yung management niya or yung mga tao that makes the decision for the company, no? Situated sa isang country. So itong sinasabi na central financing function, ito yung member of the group na siya yung nagpay finance or giving financial aid or functions to all other members of the group. So ano dapat yun? For transfer pricing purposes, dapat arm's length, no? Even the charging of interest on the loans. General description of MNE's general transfer pricing policies related to financing arrangement between associated enterprises. Ano yung mga financing arrangements na yan? Loan, no? So ano yung issues dyan? The charging of interest, no? Or sometimes sa financing arrangement, ito yung loan or equity, no? Pwede siyang mag-invest by buying shares of stocks, pwede rin siya mag-invest by extending loan to the company. So, alin ang mas beneficial sa company for tax purposes? Of course, the extension of loan kasi may interest siya na fixed. Samantalang kung bibili siya ng shares of stocks, hindi fixed ang dividend na earnings niya doon because it can be na kikita yung company or hindi. Samantalang if the extension of loan, fixed na yung rate of interest. So, may kita o wala yung company, yung investor, yung financing company, may kita talaga doon sa interest. No? Okay. MNE's annual consolidated financial statement for the fiscal year concerned, if otherwise prepared for financial reporting, regulatory, internal management, tax, or other purposes. Yun yung tinatawag natin na consolidated financial statements. And for that requirements, we have to follow certain accounting standards. And also dito sa Pilipinas, yung ECC natin, ang nagre-require din ng consolidated financial statements. No? List and brief description of the MNS Group's existing unilateral advance pricing agreements or APAS and other tax ruling relating to the allocation of income among countries. Sa allocation of income among countries, we also visit the provision of the tax treaties, no? Especially if may tax treaties yung mga countries involved. So that's for the master file. We also have our local file. So for the local file, ano po yung kailangan natin? We have the local entity, no? Description of the management structure of the local entity, local organization chart, description of the individuals to whom local management reports, and the countries in which such individuals maintain their principal offices. So halimbawa, local entity dito sa Pilipinas, no? Sometimes ang local entity dito 3 or 4, no? So they belong to the group. Yung nakikita ko sa mga samples na papagawa na rin sa akin ng transfer pricing analysis, they have more or less 3 to 5 companies here in the Philippines. Halimbawa, manufacturing company sila. Yung isang company nila is distributor. No? Yung isang company is the owner of the real estate. No? At doon nagre-rent yung manufacturing company. Yung isang company naman is management. No? Or whatever. Yung iba, delivery. Yung iba naman nasa reselling, no? So, more or less, they have at least 3 to 5 local company or local entity here in the Philippines. No? Karamihan yan ang structure. Detailed description of the business and business strategy pursued by local entity, including indication whether the local entity has been involved or affected by business restructuring intangibles. Kanina, dun tayo sa master file, we also talk about business restructuring. Ngayon sa local file, ganun din. No? If there are business restructuring na nangyari sa local entity, then we have to disclose it also in a local file. No? And then you have to disclose the key competitors. Sometimes yung key competitors, ito yung mga potential na comparables mo pagdating na sa gagawa ka na ng transfer pricing analysis. And then the control transactions, you have to disclose in the local file the control transactions, no? Description of the material control transaction, procurement of manufacturing services, purchase of goods. If you try to look at the transfer pricing audit, no, mamaya, guidelines, yung mga forms, nandyan yan, yung description. No? Naka-matrix siya. Description ng transactions, procurement of manufacturing services, purchase of goods, provision of services, loans, financial and performance guarantees, licenses of intangibles, context in which such transactions take place. So, naka-disclose lahat yan sa local file. Amount of intra-group payments and receipts for its category of control transactions involving the local entity. No? Okay. Identification of associated enterprises involved in its category of control transaction and the relationship amongst them. So, halimbawa, yung local entity mo has 42 group of companies. So, ilagay mo lahat yan, no? I-disclose mo lahat yan. Copies of all material intercompany agreements concluded by the local entity. Dito ako nahihirapan kasi yung iba ayaw magbigay, no, ng intercompany agreements because according to them, those are confidential. So, pagka nagpapagawa kayo ng transfer pricing analysis, that is also confidential. So, pag itinago mo yung intercompany agreements, hindi mo papakita. Pagdating sa transfer pricing audit, kulang, doon ka matatalo, no? So, it should be disclosed, the material intercompany agreements. O kung wala kayong agreements or contracts, gagawa kayo. Kaya nga sabi ng OECD, tell your clients, tell your taxpayers to invest in documentation. No? Kasi sometimes, wala na kang intercompany agreements or contracts kasi nagkakaintindihan naman yan, owned by the same persons. So, wala nang mga agreements, no? Pagdating sa transfer pricing documentations, it is required. So, kailangan po talaga may contracts even if related parties kayo, no? That is the purpose of documentation. Detailed comparability and functional analysis of the taxpayer and relevant associated enterprises with respect to its documented category of control transactions, including any changes compared to prior years. Functional analysis, very important because a change in functions will also change the structure of the company. Indications of the most appropriate transfer pricing method with regard to the category of transaction and the reasons for selecting that method. Yun yung sabi ko sa inyo sa transfer pricing methods that for purposes dito sa transfer pricing audit guidelines natin, which is RR2-2013, ang sinasabi doon is the best method rule. And what is the best method rule? We have to apply all the methods, the 5 transfer pricing methods as required by the OECD. No? Ang sabi doon, apply all the methods and then recommend the best method. So that is the best method rule under RR2-2013. Indication of which associated enterprise is selected as the tested party, if applicable, and an explanation of the reasons for this selection. Sino ba yung nire-require ang tested party? For those who have a one-sided approach na transfer pricing method. At sino yung one-sided approach na transfer pricing method? We have the resale price, the cost plus, and the transactional net margin method. Yun ang tinatawag natin na one-sided approach na transfer pricing method. So, kailangan doon yung tested party. No? So, sino yung tested party na hahanapin natin? The tested party, which is a member of the group, who do the least complicated functions. No? Yung simple functions lang siya. Siya yung magiging tested party. Okay. Summary of the important assumptions made in applying the transfer pricing methodology. Because in transfer pricing, especially doon sa application natin for advanced pricing arrangement, ina-allow doon yung mga assumptions, no? And there are several assumptions in accounting, in legal, in accounting standards, no? May mga assumptions dyan which are allowed in transfer pricing. If relevant, explanation of the reasons for performing a multi-year analysis. Especially dito sa COVID, no? Dito sa pandemic natin. Ano yung pwedeng gawin dito? Multi-year analysis. Halimbawa, you have to show or report a loss kasi tinamaan yung industry mo doon sa pandemic. So, anong gagawin mo? You present the multi-year analysis. Ito yung nangyari 5 years, consecutive 5 years before the pandemic. Ito yung mga sales namin, ito. And then here comes the pandemic, ito na. So makikita mo by means of a multi-year analysis. A list and description of selected comparable uncontrolled transactions, internal or external. If any, sa comparability analysis natin, we will discuss more about internal or external comparables. If any, and information on relevant financial indicators and also the financial indicators, ano-ano ba yung mga yan, no? Bawa na yung return on assets, BERE ratio, the net margin, no? Gross profit margin. So those are financial indicators. Return on capital employed, no? So for independent enterprises relied on the transfer pricing analysis, no? Kasama na yung description of comparable search methodology and source of such information. Madugo po ang transfer pricing documentation. No, yung unang encounter ko pa lang sa transfer pricing documentation, ang kapal-kapal kasi nag-audit ako eh. So, may transfer pricing issues. So, hiningan ko sila ng transfer pricing analysis. Kasi ang gumagawa po ng una na hindi pa tayo ni-require dito sa Pilipinas. Ang unang mga gumagawa niyan sa multinational companies, internal ginagawa na nila yan in preparation for the transfer pricing audit. Kaya may tinatawag sila na master documentation, no? Sinong gumagawa niyan? Usually yung mga big firms. And that cost the company 2 months, no? Sobra. So, ngayon, including na yung not so big companies, kaya at saka marami na rin nagtitrain sa transfer pricing, kaya yung kumbaga yung demand for the services na scattered na, so nag-lower na rin yung payment for the services, no? Description of any comparability adjustments performed and an indication of whether adjustments have been made to the results of the tested party, the comparable uncontrolled transactions or both, no? So we will have a separate webinar on that, on comparability analysis and adjustment. Description of the reasons for concluding that relevant transactions were priced on an arm's length basis based on the application of the selected transfer pricing method. Of course, when you present to the in your study na ito yung transactions ng company ko is arm's length, of course, you have to show proof, no? And yung proof mo yan are documentations. Summary of financial information used in applying transfer pricing methodology. Okay. Saan mo yan makukuha, yung mga financial information na yan? Of course, sa company. May isa nga akong nagawa ng transfer pricing analysis na ang comment nila is, the related party transactions are not well explained, sabi sa akin. Ang sagot ko naman, I don't have the information. You have to show me and provide me the documentation on your related party transactions. Kasi kung wala kayong ipoprovide sa akin, hindi man pwedeng gawa-gawa ko lang yan. No? So saan yan naman gagaling? Sa internal also of the taxpayer. Copy of existing unilateral and bilateral multilateral APAS and other tax rulings to which the local tax jurisdiction is not a party and which are related to control transactions described above. No? So ito yung mga APA na or advanced pricing arrangements. Sa Pilipinas, halos wala pa tayo niyan, no? Kasi wala pa akong nabalitaan na concluded na APA although there are applicants. Okay, so still in the local file, the financial information required, no? Financial accounts for the fiscal year concerned. If audited statement exists, they should be supplied, and if not, existing unaudited statement should be supplied. Ano naman yung risk pag unaudited statement ang gamitin mo? Sometimes yung ano nila, credibility, no? On sometimes, since unaudited statement yan, pwedeng magbago. So, mas mahirap pagka unaudited statements yung gagamitin. No? Actually, naranasan ko na yan. Doon sa nagpapagawa ng transfer pricing analysis, unaudited financial statements yung ibibigay sa iyo, kulang-kulang yung mga data. No? Kulang-kulang yung mga explanations. Kaya as I prefer the audited. Why? Kasi tapos na yun, saka nagawa na ng accountant. More or less complete na, hindi ka na mahirapan na ikaw pa yung gagawa ng sarili mong mga computations, no? Okay, next is the country-by-country reporting. So, sa country-by-country reporting, kasi ito na yung third, because sa OECD documentation, we have the 3/3 documentation. The master file, the local file, at ito yung third, the country-by-country reporting. And there is a model template for this, no? We have the table 1, which is the overview of allocation of income, taxes, and business activities by tax jurisdiction. Ano yung by tax jurisdiction? Especially if the multinational company is situated in different countries. So you have to show it sa matrix. No? So tax jurisdiction, yan yung pangalan ng tax authority. No? So revenue of the unrelated party, and also the related party and the total, no? Kasi sa related parties and unrelated parties, makita mo agad-agad saan ba ang malaki niya na sales between related parties or unrelated parties. And then the total. And then we have the profit or loss before income tax. Income tax paid for on cash basis, no? So cash basis, ibig sabihin hindi pa kasama yung mga ano doon, yung mga 2307 or certificate of withholding, yung cash basis lang. Income tax accrued correct year. Stated capital, accumulated earnings, number of employees, tangible assets other than cash and cash equivalent. So this information in the country-by-country reporting are very, very important when you make a transfer pricing analysis. Pagka kumpleto ka na sa documentation, di ka na mahirapan paggawa mo na analysis. Okay. Table 2, list of the constituent entities of the M&E groups included in its aggregation per tax jurisdictions. Sino itong constituent entities? Ito yung mga member of the group. Ito yung mga companies. No? Okay. Kasama sila doon sa aggregation per tax declaration or doon sa total. No? So, name of the tax jurisdiction and then the constituent entities resident in the tax. Ano to? Hindi ko na mabasa. Sobrang liit. Jurisdiction. Okay. No? Tax jurisdiction of organization or incorporation of different, if different from tax jurisdiction of residence, no? Sobrang liit, basahin nyo na lang yan. Anyway, those are your guide, no? And then dito, breakdown kung anong klase siya na activities. No? May research and development, no? May holding or managing related property. No? So, yan yung mga activities. Okay? Please specify the nature of the activity of the constituent entity in the additional information section. So may mga additional information pa. That's the country by country reporting. Okay? Let's have a poll question, Harry. No, CR Lao, sandali. No, please answer the poll question. That is one way of checking po na you are participating. Okay? Let's have a poll question, Harry. No, CR Lao, sandali. No, please answer the poll question. That is one way of checking po na you are participating. So, this revenue regulations 2-2013 is the transfer pricing guidelines in the Philippines dated January 2013. So, under Section 12, the documentation requirements, anong sabi ng guidelines? Taxpayer must demonstrate that their transfer prices are consistent with the arm's length principle. And what is the arm's length principle as we tackled it on the first free webinar? The arm's length principle is that the related party transactions or the commercial and financial transactions of related parties should be at par or similar with that of the independent party. So the main purpose of keeping adequate documentation is for the taxpayers to be able to, number one, defend their transfer pricing analysis. Kaya nga dito sa 2-2013, wala siyang sinasabi na mandatory yung paggawa ng transfer pricing analysis. But during the transfer pricing audit, hahanapin ng examiner, no? So defend their transfer pricing analysis. Number two, prevent transfer pricing adjustment arising from tax examinations. Ano yung transfer pricing adjustments? That is the adjustment or findings of the examiner that will increase your tax deficiency. No? Number 3, support their application for MAP or the mutual agreement procedure or yung request mo for transfer pricing, na correct yung transfer pricing ng taxpayer. No? So taxpayers who have not prepared adequate documentation may find their application for MAP rejected or that the transfer pricing issue would be much more difficult to resolve. Itong MAP, actually, ito yung APA, no? Advanced Pricing Arrangement. No? So, sabi nila, yung transfer pricing issue, difficult to resolve. No? Especially kung may mga issue na ito yung isang concern ko when it comes to intangibles na I really requested my taxpayers to involve to place or disclose intangibles in the financial statement. Why? Sabi ko kasi if there are transfer pricing issues that will crop up during the transfer pricing audit and it involves intangibles and intangibles are not disclosed in your financial statement. So dalawa kaagad yung violations mo. Non-disclosure, so misrepresented yung financial statement mo. No? So yun yung inaalala ko na walang disclosure ng intangibles in the financial statement. Kasi napakaraming issues in transfer pricing that involves intangibles. Ma'am, wala kaming intangibles. We have no intangibles. Kaya wala kaming i-report. Intangibles there are so many intangibles, no? So lahat ngayon may website, no? Lahat ngayon may mga email, may mga software, they are all intangibles, no? So just try to expand your knowledge on intangibles para bago nyo sabihin na wala kayong intangibles, no? And remember, we are living in a digitized economy. Kaya nga, meron tayong free webinar on Thursday on the transfer pricing on digitized economy, no? And taxation of digitized economy. Para ma-open up tayo on the digitized economy. And the digitized economy, ano na yun nandyan? Virtual. So there are so many, kaya maganda yung discussion natin on transfer pricing live streaming kagabi. It's all about the intangibles din yun eh. Yung pricing ng or taxation ng mga online sellers na sabi nila walang physical presence so you need not pay the business tax. No? So anong nangyari? Nagbago yung Congress, gumawa siya ng batas and then kini-question ng taxpayer sa court at anong sabi ng court? Iba na yung economic realities nung ginawa yung unang batas na kailangan ng physical presence at ngayon na virtual na lahat, no? We have virtual community, we have virtual sellers, we have virtual buyers. So kung hindi din virtual yung taxation mo, the country is drained of its budget na kasi wala na siyang makolekta. Why? Nandoon na sa online na, no? So digitized na. So wala na physical presence. Kung hanapin mo ba yung physical presence because before you can impose taxes, wala ka nang makukolekta, no? And then hindi na naka-align yung collecting arms ng government with the reality, no? Kasi digitized economy na at ano na yung mga nandyan intangibles. Kaya pag sinabi nyo na wala kayong intangibles, you have to think otherwise. Okay. So under this RR 2-2013, there is a retention requirement, no? At ano yung retention requirement natin? During the time of Commissioner Henares, binago niya yung retention requirement or the archiving of records, which is 3 years, ginawa niya 10 years, no? So the retention requirement for transfer pricing purposes under this guideline should follow also the BIR requirements now, which is 10 years. Retention period. Transfer pricing document must be retained, preserved within the period provided in the tax code. No? So, yun yung sabi ko na 10 years. So it is to the best interest of the taxpayer to maintain documentation for purposes of MAP and possible transfer pricing examination. Ang transfer pricing examination here in the Philippines is included in the regular audit. Unlike in other countries na meron silang international tax division that deals with the transfer pricing audit. Pero dito sa Pilipinas, kasama po siya sa regular audit. That's why the examiners are all trained to conduct transfer pricing audit even yung taga-district. No? Kasi pati sila, included na sila sa kanilang transfer pricing audit. Contemporaneousness. The transfer pricing document must be contemporaneous. At ano yung ibig sabihin ng contemporaneous? It is contemporaneous if it exists or is brought into existence at the time associated enterprises develop or implement any arrangement that might raise transfer pricing issues or review this arrangement when preparing tax returns. So anong ibig sabihin ng contemporaneous? It must be existing at the time of transactions. Hindi yung upon audit na lang, gagawa ka na lang ng board resolution, gagawa ng kunwari secretary certificate na nangyari to. It should be present at the time of the transactions, hindi after. No? Documentation details. Ito yung requirements sa RR 2-2013. No? So just like the master file, no, kailangan din yung organizational structure, nature of the business industry and market conditions, control transactions, assumptions, strategies, and policies. Dito sa documentation details niya, very broad, no? Kasi pag sinabi mo assumptions, ang dami assumptions. Strategies, ang dami din yan. And also the policies, no? Cost contribution arrangement, comparability, functional and risk analysis, selection of the transfer pricing method, application of the transfer pricing method, background documents, index to documents. Actually, ito requirements niya parang transfer pricing analysis na rin to. No? Okay. We have another poll question, Hari, for the RR. Yung number 2. Sige. Ilan na yung subscribers natin? At ilan yung, ha?
1,001.
Yung viewers natin? 71 viewers tayo ngayon. Yung nag-answer ng poll questions?
31.
Yung kanina? Yung ngayon? O sige. No, please answer the poll question as we go along. We'll continue with the discussion on RAMO 1-2019, which is the transfer pricing audit guidelines. No, this is your guide because once the examiner or the BIR will conduct the transfer pricing audit, kanino niya hanapin ito or who will provide the transfer pricing documentation. Kung kayo yung accountant ng company, kayo yung magpo-provide. That's why better ready na po kayo so that during the transfer pricing audit, hugot na lang kayo ng hugot ng documents, bigay na lang kayo sa examiner. No? Okay, so these are the requirements. Ito yung request letter of information or proofs. Ito yung sample letter, no, ng first notice to give information on related transactions. Kaya nga sabi ko sa inyo, since the transfer pricing audit is together with or done simultaneously with the regular audit. Kaya yung mga requirements ng regular audit, on top of that, ito pa, no? Kaya hindi basta-basta yung ma-audit para sa akin pa. No, naranasan ko na rin na ma-audit. It's a nightmare talaga na ma-audit, no? Yung 29 years akong nag-audit, wala lang sa akin kasi you are the one asking for documents. Pero pag ikaw na pala yung magpo-provide ng documents, at ang daming kulang ng documents mo, sobrang hirap. No? Di mo alam kung ano yung gagawin mo. Sobrang hirap talaga. That's why, this is in preparation. Kaya documentation ito, this is in preparation for audit. No? So this is a request letter of information or proofs. So first notice to give information on related transactions. No? Address to the taxpayer, name of taxpayer, TIN address. So in connection with the letter of authority. And then the information should be provided for within 5 days. So, hari may pumasok na ibang program. Tanggalin mo nga. Ay, nako. May mga ganyan-ganyan na siya ngayon. Yung, yung ano yan eh, yung, anong tawag dyan, yung kanilang mga news, mga ano, parang bagong feature siya ng internet. Store mo siya eh. Okay. Q. Okay. So, this request is within 5 work days, no? You have to provide it within 5 work days. So, yun yung una, first notice to give information on related transactions. And then, we have the statement letter. Sino yung undersigned dito? Sino yung magbibigay? The taxpayer, no? Representative. No? Ano yung ibibigay niya dito? Information about related party transactions, about the segmented financial statement. We have our seminar on how to prepare segmented financial statement, no? Kasi sa segmented financial statement, it depends on the examiner on what kind of segmented information i-require sa inyo. It can be segmented by brands, no? So you have to be ready with your source document. Kung halimbawa, you have 1,000 branches, you have to be ready with your financial statement per branch. Kung halimbawa naman per product, halimbawa, you are a manufacturing company and you are manufacturing 1,000 products, and then the first 10 products or 20 products that contributes at least 5% of your revenue, yun ang i-require sa inyo. So, you must be ready also with that kind of information. So, ibig sabihin, yung mga segmented financial information na yan, piniprepare nyo na yan sa internal so that upon audit, may kukunan kayo ng information. Otherwise, wala kayong maibibigay doon sa segmented financial statements. No? And number 3, supply chain management analysis. Supply chain management analysis, saan ba galing yung raw materials mo, no? And then, saan siya nanggagaling, sino yung involved, sino yung nagsusupply, up to the last na pupunta na siya hanggang sa customer na. No? Yan yung supply chain management analysis. Ang gusto makita dyan ng examiners, who are the related parties involved in the supply chain. No? Kasi during the supply chain, the transfer of raw materials from one company to another related parties. Diyan mo i-determine yung pricing, no? Actually, diyan yung nangyari sa the most controversial case in transfer pricing, which is the GlaxoSmithKline. Ano nangyari doon? Supply, no? The costing of the raw materials, the active ingredient of Santang, which is the product na nag-undergo ng transfer pricing audit. Isang product lang, and that cost the company how many billions of deficiency income taxes because of the transfer pricing audit. No? So, supply chain management analysis. And then number 4, function assets and risk analysis or the FAR analysis. No? Paano mo gagawin ito? Kung meron ka ng transfer pricing analysis na report, mabilis na lang to. Kung wala, gagawin nyo to in report form. No? So, characteristics of business. Comparability analysis as attached. No? Yung comparability analysis, yun na rin yung transfer pricing analysis kasi you have to present comparable companies. And sa paggawa ng transfer pricing analysis, yung choice at saka selection yung how to find comparable companies, yun ang pinakamahirap, no? And that will incur you a lot of expenses, especially if you buy information from commercial databases that will cost you thousands of dollars, no? Okay. Next is the related party transactions. Ito na. Ito na. That's why kanina doon sa master file, doon sa ito mas specific ito kasi audit na to eh, no? So, Department of Finance, Bureau of Internal Revenue, taxpayer TIN, taxable year, and then the address, no? Okay, so for item number 1, we have the type of transactions, the related party, the value or amount of the transactions, the transfer pricing method, and then the remarks, no? Okay. So let's start with number 1. No? So sale of A, goods, B, services, C, raw materials, D, capital goods, or the PPE or property, plant, and equipment. No? Along the way, kasi pagka may transactions yung company, sometimes meron pa siyang mga extraordinary transactions na binibili and then pinapasok niya dito sa PPE or the property, plant, and equipment. So you should be also aware of that. At kailangan nakapasok talaga dyan. Why? Kasi there are companies na yung management bumili na pala ng bagong assets, hindi alam ng accounting. So, hindi na disclose. No? So, pagdating sa transfer pricing audit, hindi alam nung accounting, wala sa financial statements, pero may record ang BAR. Kaya nali-letter notice. No? So be sure na sa documentation ng inyong transactions, dapat yung management at saka yung accounting may collaboration. Dahil pag hindi yan magtugma ang report ninyo, then you have a risk of adjustment. No? Kasi may adjustment yan. Halimbawa, bumili ng 500 million na investment sa PPE yung management. Hindi alam na accounting, hindi na disclosed. Imagine misrepresented yung financial statements nyo. And if it is a material amount that is already fraudulent, kasi saan ka kumuha ng 500 million na binili mo? No? So fraudulent na yung financial statements mo at yun na yung mga potential na kinakasuhan ng BIR sa DOJ or sa Department of Justice. No? Hindi ko lang alam ngayon dahil pandemic kung meron pang mga gumagawa niyan. Pero for those companies na namamayagpag during the pandemic, posible. No? Okay. Purchase of, ito sale, yung una, sale of goods, service, raw materials, capital goods. Next is the purchase of goods, services, raw materials, and capital goods. No? Dito, siya na ang bumili. Doon sa una, siya ang nagbenta. No? So, both, you have to disclose. No? The sale or the purchase, you have to disclose. No? Kasi financial transactions yan eh. It involves money of the company. Number 2, delivery, utilization of intangible property. Itong delivery, utilization of intangible properties, ito yung source of income of many multinationals. Why? Kasi diyan nila ini-exploit yung kanilang trademarks, yung kanilang brands, diyan yung kanilang sales, no? Yung kanilang mga softwares, nagla-license sila, yung kanilang mga business name. No? So, nandyan yan lahat sa number 2. This is very broad. And then we have the intercompany loans or advances. Yung intercompany loans and advances, ito yung unang case natin dito sa Pilipinas ng intercompany loans na talo yung BAR, no? Why? Because during the court hearing or decision, yung resolution ng court is walang transfer pricing issues at saka ang pinabayad doc stamps lang, no? Pero kung ngayon siguro nangyari yun at may transfer pricing regulations na tayo, posibleng iba ang decision ng court, no? Kasi in that case ng PhilInvest, yung may intercompany loans, no? Nag-loan yung isang company and then pinahiram niya sa another related party companies without interest, no? So anong ginawa ng BIR? inano siya, inassess siya on the interest income. Kasi dapat arm's length. So pag nagpahiram ka ng pera, dapat may interest. So inassess siya ng interest income. Presumptive lang, no? Imputed interest ang term nila. So dapat hindi imputed, inimpute mo lang. Dapat ang word mo doon is interest lang talaga. Why? Kasi hindi naman yan imputed eh. The transaction should be arm's length. So kung ano yung transaction ng independent parties, dapat yun din ang transactions ng related parties. So pag nagpa-utang yung independent parties with interest, so dapat ang related parties may interest din. No? So hindi siya dapat na word na imputed because taxes cannot be based on assumptions lang. No? But the facts and circumstances of the case, nandiyan naman talaga nagpahiram. So dapat may interest. No? So, yun yung mga previous na cases na talo din yung BAR at dog stamps lang ang pinabayad. No? Number 4 is payment of services. No? For the payment of services, you have to disclose. Kasi lalo na kung related parties. And the payment of services that should be, ito nga makakaproblema ka once you are the ones making transfer pricing analysis, especially makita mo hindi arm's length, no? Yung payment of services niya between related parties, napakababa. Pero yung sinisingil niya na payment of services from independent parties, mataas. So, anong ibig sabihin nun? Hindi arm's length ang transaction. So, anong gagawin mo? You have to present it to the management, no? And then, pag gumawa ka na ng report mo, yung report mo is not arm's length, no? Kasi hindi mo naman pwedeng baguhin yung findings mo. Okay. So number 5, delivery, acquisition of financial instruments such as shares and bonds. No? So ito yung financial instrument. Shares of stocks, bonds, if you invest in shares ng companies. No? So yun kung you have to disclose the delivery and the acquisition. And then you have to disclose also the shared expenses. Why? Because halimbawa, 10 companies kayo and then you are situated in one building lang, no? And that one building, the building is owned by one company. So for the shared expenses ng rental, ng mga utilities, ano ginawa nyo dyan? No? So you have to show proof on the shared expenses and how you account for the shared expenses. And others, no, kung meron pa. Okay. So to be filled out with information in connection with related party transactions of the taxpayer, among other things, country of counterpart and reason for selection of methods. Common expenses shared by related companies. No? So yun ang explanation niya dyan. And then we have the segmented financial statement. No? Ito na yung segmented financial statement. So for the sale item, number 1, sale. So we have the transaction, the amount, related party, independent party, the amount, direct or indirect segmentation within the company yan, no? And then the remarks. And then the cost of sales, the gross profit rate, the general and administrative cost, net operating income. Sa preparation ng related party transactions, segmented financial statement, you have to coordinate with the examiner kung ano yung gusto niyang information, no? Na ipaprepare sa inyo. And then sundan ninyo kung ano yung matrix na ibibigay niya. If this is the one, no, itong matrix na to, segmented financial statement, then be it, no? So you have to, kaya sabi ko sa inyo, be prepared with your source documents para pagdating ng transfer pricing audit, di kayo mahirapan. Okay, so we have the transactions purchase from related party, loan to from related party, the interest, the income, and the expense. So these are all disclosures, ha? Parang sinasabi mo na ito na talaga yung transactions mo. Services to related party, royalty or license fee to related party in connection with manufacturing. So what are the royalty or license fees? These are payments to the intangibles, no? Halimbawa, mayroon kang product brand na mina-manufacture, no? So, ini-exploit mo yung trademark ng iba. So, may license ka. So, kasama mo yan i-disclose. Royalty or license fee to related party in connection with marketing. Because we have marketing intangibles and we have manufacturing intangibles. Dito sa manufacturing intangibles, posible ito yung mga secret formula, yung mga ingredients, no, yung pangalan na ini-exploit mo. Dito naman sa marketing, ito naman yung mga trademark, trade brands, or yung marketing strategies. No? Usually, na a-acquire yan ng mga nagpa-franchise. No? Mag-franchise sila sa isang sikat na companies. So, tinuturuan sila and then they are using the marketing strategies and then the brand name ng sikat na company. No? Of course, for a payment. With payment yon at ang mahal. No? Other cost to related party, no? And then the total related party transactions. Okay. So for supply chain management analysis, no? So pag gumawa ka ng supply chain management analysis, you start with the source of the raw materials. And then from that source, saan siya napunta? From that company, saan na naman pumunta? So, from the beginning of the acquisition up to the manufacturing, up to the delivery to the customer, you have to show it in your supply chain management analysis. No? And who are the companies involved along the way? And are those company properly remunerated or compensated? No? Kasi baka mamaya, since mga support services lang sila doon sa parent company, ang binabayad sa kanila, cost plus lang reimbursement of expenses, plus a little markup na hindi naman sila nakakapag-profit. No? So in that case, anong gamitin natin? The profit split analysis so that magkaroon naman ng profit yung companies na provision of services lang ginagawa. Okay. Next are the functions, assets, and risk analysis. So we have here the template or the format, no? So for the functions, we have the selection of suppliers, scheduling, supervision. These are very specific, no? So you have to disclose, no? The taxpayer, the name of related party, name of other party, and then the remarks, no? So owner of raw materials, negotiation of price of local materials, negotiation of prices of imported materials. So lahat ng activities, no? We have the consignment of raw materials, we have the research and development, and also the planning production. No? Lahat yan naka-disclose. We have the production and process, no? Or processing. And then the ownership of goods or products, assembling and packing, warehousing and logistics, stipulation of sales price. No? Sino nag-stipulate ng sales price? Of course, the management. No? Invoicing and collection. No? Sa taxation of digitized economy, ma-discuss natin in part, although wala pa tayo, malabo pa tayo dito eh, sa invoicing and collection. Kasi may mga e-tax receipt. So how do we go about the regulation of tax receipts, no? Kasi ang dami na nagtatanong, ma'am, my supplier is online. Tama na ba itong resibo na binigay niya? So, ano lang daw, yung e-receipts, no? So, pagkat yan ang sinabi kong oo, it will not conform with the administrative requirements of the BIR. Kaya nga, hindi pa natin siya ma-answer accurately because the BIR has no law pa about these digitized businesses. No? So, kulang pa. Okay. So, for the invoicing and collection, you have to disclose the party who issues sales invoice, party who performs the collection, and party who bears uncollectible or receivables. No? And then we have the marketing, advertising, and promotion. So market analysis and then market research. Quality control. sale and distributions, no? So ito yung functions, assets and risk pa. Ha? And then others. Dito sa matrix na to, you are giving the information, no? Para mabilis lang mag-analyze yung examiner. No? Sale and distribution, and then others. And then the assets, the intangible assets, no? Okay. And also the tangible assets. No? So, you have to disclose the owner of know-how in connection with production, patent of product owner, license of know-how, trademark owner, license of trademark. No? So, lahat yan. And also the tangible assets. No? You have to disclose the owners. And then the risk. No? Ito yung risk, ang daming ano dito eh. Gray area din sa risk. Eh, no? So, the party who bears research and development risk, party who bears financial risk, lahat ng risk. No? And then we have the characteristics of business. Ano ba siya? Fully fledged manufacturing ba siya? Contract manufacturing, toll manufacturing, fully fledged distributor, limited risk distributor, commissioner, commission agent. No? May mga samples tayo dito sa fully fledged manufacturing at saka yung contract at saka toll manufacturing. No? May mga samples tayo dyan, but of course, due to our very limited time, no, hindi pa natin yan ma-explain in detail. No? So, for the comparability analysis, ito naman po yung comparability factors. No? So, we have the characteristic of product and services. No? So, category, the tangible goods, and then the services. The explanations, physical characteristic of the product, category of products, does product have special characteristics that are different? No? Related transactions and independent transactions. How much? And then the quality of goods, availability of goods, the nature and type. And then the assets, then the risk. No? And then the contractual terms. Ito na yung mga comparability factors. So what are the 5 comparability factors na dapat memorize natin because we are studying transfer pricing? So we have the characteristics of the goods and services. We have the functions, assets and risks, the economic conditions, the business strategies, and the contractual terms. So yung 5 na yan. No? Kaya pagdating na sa gumawa na tayo ng comparability analysis, we have to discuss thoroughly that 5 factors. No? Actually, dyan lang naman talaga iikot yung analysis mo eh, sa factors na yan. No? So, the comparability factors, business strategies. No? So, iba-iba yan. Kung ano yung actual na business strategies, halimbawa, nag-predatory pricing yung company mo, ilagay mo dyan sa explanations. No? And then we have the supplemental letter request for information on affiliated transactions. So this is the second and final notice. No? So nandyan pa rin, characteristic of industry and market, characteristic of related party transactions, characteristic of company as part group, characteristics of taxpayers' business, transfer pricing method used, comparable use in applying arm's length principle to affiliated transactions, and determination of fair price profits of related party transactions. Okay, so those are required. May notice na ipadala sa inyo yung BAR. And then we have the minutes of provision of information on taxpayers in respect of affiliated transactions. No? So name of employee, designation, and then position. Okay. Okay. The minute of provision of information in respect of related party transactions has been duly made and signed by. So yun yung para ano siya, yung talagang binding within the taxpayers, dapat ang magbibigay talaga ng ganyang mga information na very important should be an authorized person, no? So, dapat authorized siya ng company. Okay. So, tuloy lang tayo, no? Sa last portion na natin yung poll question natin, isa na lang. No? So, we discussed this revenue regulations 34-2020. This is the latest regulations on the attachment of BIR Form 1709 in the annual income tax returns of companies with related parties transactions. What is the purpose of these regulations? No? To submit to the Bureau of Internal Revenue Form number 1709. We will discuss the content and how to fill up this BAR Form 1709. Is to allow the BAR to verify that taxpayers are reporting the related party transactions at arm's length prices. Kasi, ang documentation mo, kung hindi naman proof na arm's length ang price mo, so what's the use of your documentation? Useless siya. So it is also intended to improve and strengthen the Bureau's transfer pricing, risk assessment, and audit functions. Why? Because through BAR 1709, makikita na niya kaagad kung malaki ba to at marami ba tong transfer pricing issues later on. So siya na yung isa-subject mo sa audit. Most importantly, the information that will be gathered from the RPT or the related party transactions form and its attachment will be used by the BIR during the transfer pricing risk assessment to determine whether or not to conduct a thorough review audit of a particular entity or transaction. So it will help the BIR in choosing companies that will be subjected to thorough audit. So to accomplish the foregoing while taking into account the mandate of the Ease of Doing Business and Efficient Government Service Delivery Act of 2018, especially during the COVID-19 pandemic, there is a need to streamline the guidelines and procedures of the submission. Kaya nga, kung matandaan ninyo, lumabas itong BAR Form number 1709 during the pandemic. No? Kaya nga, dumating ito or lumabas ito 2020. Okay. So, filing of BIR Form number 1709. No? So, sino yung required to file and submit the related party transaction form together with the annual income tax return, sabay. No? So, mandatory po siya for the large taxpayers. No? Taxpayers enjoying tax incentives, mandatory din siya. No? Just like the Board of Investment, ito yung mga nag-enjoy ng tax holidays. Registered and Economic Zone Enterprises, ito yung sa mga PESA registered, no? Those enjoying income tax holiday or ITH or subject to preferential income tax rate. So, ito yung may mga enjoying preferential rate, no? May mga tax holidays or may mga discount sila sa tax. No? So, taxpayers reporting net operating losses for the current taxable year and the immediately preceding 2 consecutive taxable years. So, yung net loss sila ng 3 years. No? Subject sila din sa audit. Okay, so related party defined under Section 3 of Revenue Regulations 19-2020. Ito yung unang regulations on RPT or Related Party Transactions Form. No? Pero inamend na siya nitong 34-2020. Which has transactions with A, B, or C for this purpose, K management personnel, as defined under Section 3.7 of RR 19-2020, shall no longer be required to file and submit the RPT form, nor shall there be any requirement to report any transaction between K management personnel. So, hindi na po sinama yung information about K management personnel that you are going to disclose in the PR Form 1709. Hindi na po kasama. Excuse me. When short period AITR, annual income tax returns, are required by law or existing issuances. Halimbawa, short period return na yung 2021 mo, kailangan ka pa rin mag-submit ng BAR Form 1709, no? Shall be accomplished regardless of the reason for filing the said short period return. No? So, kahit short period return yan, kailan mo pa rin file, no? So, compliance herewith shall only be mandatory for short period returns filed in 2021 and subsequent years. So, 2021 na tayo ngayon, mandatory na po siya. Okay. Submission of transfer pricing documentation and other supporting documents. Sino yung required, no? Ito yung who meets the following materiality thresholds. So, ito yung may limit na, may threshold. So, annual gross sales or revenue for the subject taxable period exceeding 150 million, no? And the total amount of related party transactions with foreign and domestic related parties exceed 90 million. So, meron siyang total sales na 150 million and meron siyang domestic or related party transactions na 90 million. So, out of the 150, dapat 90 million yung related party transactions niya to qualify for companies who will submit 1709. Okay. In the event na hindi hindi umabot doon sa threshold level yung kaninang diniscuss natin. Halimbawa, the company gross sales is only 100 million and then yung domestic related parties niya is only 50 million. Of course, hindi na siya kasama doon sa magpa-file, no, ng 1709 that you are going to attach in your annual income tax return. But for those who will not attach the BAR Form 1709 on their returns, should disclose in their financial statement the reason why they are not so required to disclose. No? So, dapat merong disclosure sa notes to financial statement. In computing the above threshold, the following items shall be included. Ano yung mga dapat included dun sa sales na 150 million? Amounts received and or receivable from related parties or paid and or payable to related parties during the taxable year, but excluding compensation paid to key management personnel. No? So yung receivable at saka payable kasama. And outstanding balances of loans and untrade amounts due from or to all related parties. Okay, so related party transactions covered by the advance pricing agreement or yung APA need not be disclosed in the RPT form but shall nonetheless be included in the computation of the amount of related party transactions following the prescribed formula. Or, ito yon, related party transactions meeting the following materiality threshold. Ito yung may sale of tangible goods na exceeding or more than 60 million within the taxable year. So, yan yung threshold naman doon sa sale of tangible goods. If involving service transactions, payment of interest, utilization of intangible goods or other related party transactions in the aggregate amount, magkano naman? 15 million within the taxable year. So, mas mababa yung threshold ng services. If TPD was required to be prepared during the immediately preceding taxable period for exceeding either A or B. No? So kung nag-exceed ka na ng A or B, required ka na rin na mag-file. The TPD and other supporting documents as set out in Section 6 of RR 19-2020 shall no longer be attached to the RPT form but shall be submitted within 30 calendar days. Kasi dun sa una, sa 19-2020, we have to attach the contracts, yung mga agreements, yung mga documents na mga withholding. So, daming nagreklamo na ang kapal. So, sa 19-2020, inalaw din nila na ang isubmit is only soft copy. Pero dito sa 34-2020, hindi na ni-require na isubmit yung mga documents na yun kasama sa BAR Form 1709. Pero ano lang daw dapat? It should be submitted within 30 calendar days pagka nag-request yung commissioner or under letter of authority ka na. No? You are under audit. Doon mo na siya ipipresent. No? All internal revenue taxes subject to non-extendable period of 30 calendar days based on meritorious grounds. No? Yung ano pang hindi required dito, yung key management personnel. Okay. Additional disclosures, requirements for taxpayers with related party transactions. Ito yung sa RR 21-2002, 15-2010, taxpayers who are not covered under Section 2 hereof are required to disclose in the notes to the financial statements that they are not covered by the requirements. So ito na yung sinasabi ko na pagka wala ka sa threshold, hindi mo kailangan mag-submit ng BIR Form 1709. You have to disclose it in your notes to financial statement and you have to state the reason why you are not subject to the attachment requirement of 1709 form. Okay. So what are the new related party transaction forms? Itong BIR Form 1709, binago ito. No? Kasi yung una, doon sa under 19-2020, iba yon. Dito na naman sa 34-2020, iba naman yung 1709. No? In-enhance. Penalties. Any violation of the provision of this issuance shall be subject to the penalties provided in Section 250, 266, and other relevant provisions of the NIRC as amended. So yung penalties, it is based po doon sa basic penalties. Meron niyang silang mga tinitingnan ng BIR na schedule of penalties. Of course, the schedule of penalties is based on the basic amount na kailangan mong bayaran. So, a mandatory or repealing clause, ito yung pertinent provision ng 19-2020, at mayroon din po itong clarificatory circular, revenue memorandum circular na 76-2020. Yun na nga, pakibasa nyo na lang yan because of the very limited time that we have. Tingnan ninyo yung 19-2020 and then the RMC 76-2020 para ma-compare ninyo the requirements, and it is explained in that mga memorandum circulars. And then we have to discuss the 1709 na form, no? Kasi ito na yung pinaka poll question number 3 natin, no? So for the BIR form number 1709, this form was enhanced in December 2020, no? Try to look at the ano ba yan? Left side portion, upper portion of the form, nandiyan yung i-arrow mo sa kanila, Hari. No, yung BIR form number 1709, enhanced siya on December 2020. So this is the page 1, information on return on transactions with related party, foreign and or domestic. No, ang dami nagtatanong kasi there are lecturer na sabi nila ang transfer pricing daw is cross-border lang or between foreign lang, Philippines and foreign countries. No, sabi ko try to read the revenue regulations 12 RR 2-2013, which is the transfer pricing guidelines in the Philippines. Sabi ko, ano sabi doon sa guidelines na yun? Applicable and related party transactions in a domestic and cross-border transactions. No? So foreign and or domestic, kaya try to look at BIR Form 1709. No? Nandiyan na nakalagay, foreign and or domestic. No? So, sabi nila, ma'am, is there a domestic transfer pricing? Yes, of course. Meron. No? So, enter all required information in capital letters using black ink, mark applicable boxes with an X. Nandiyan na ba ito sa EBIR form, Hari? So, wala. So, nasaan lang siya ngayon kung gusto mo mag-download?
Sa website ng BIR, downloadable siya.
Downloadable siya, PDF.
PDF.
Tapos, pwede mo siyang i-fill up.
Code, opo.
Okay. So downloadable lang po siya sa website ng BIR, pero wala pa siya doon sa EBIR form, no? Since this is an attachment, pwede din ninyo siyang, once na na-fill up na, pwede ninyong ipadala sa EAFS, no? Tama ba, Hari? Sa electronic na filing or submission ng attachment, no? Pwede din ninyo ipadala doon yung 1709. And then wait for the confirmation. Yan na yung pinaka-proof nyo na nag-submit kayo. No? Hindi na kailangan ipa-receive pa sa BIR. Okay. Pero kung pinilapan nyo lang at saka hindi kayo nag-submit online, dalhin nyo sa BIR at patatakan yung hard copy. Okay. So for the line number 1, we have the calendar and fiscal year, no? Kasi kung corporation ka, can be calendar or fiscal year. And the year ended, number of sheets attached, and then the background information. Dito sa number of sheets attached, ilagay nyo kung meron kayong mga attachments. Kasi usually, kung marami kayong related party transactions, you have to make a schedule and then attach na lang dito sa form. For the part 1 background information, we have the taxpayer identification number and then the RDO code. Itong RDO code, ito yung kung saan registered yung taxpayer. Okay. For the line number 6, the taxpayer's name, last name, first name, middle name, individual, or registered name for non-individual. Number 7, we have the registered address, no? Indicate complete address, indicate the branch address. If the registered address is different from the current address, go to the RDO to update registered address by using BIR form number 1905. No? So, do not use a new address without first updating your RDO. No? So, kung hindi kayo nakapag-update, use the old address pa rin. No? Kasi yun pa yung nakarecord sa BIR, doon pa kayo registered. Okay. The zip code, and then the contact number, landline and cell phone, and then the email address. No? As a way of reminder, yung email address nyo, huwag nyo i-mix up sa personal. No? Yung email address nyo, for na official for the BIR filing, yun lang. Huwag nyo lang haluan ng mga personal nyo na files. No? Okay. So part 2, details of related parties, ito na. So you have to disclose here the foreign related parties, the name, nature of relationship, the country of residence, foreign TIN, local TIN, with permanent establishment or PE in the Philippines, yes or no, and with TIN of PE. Okay. We have a free webinar on transfer pricing and permanent establishment. No? Kailan yun, Hari?
Thursday.
Hindi. Thursday natin is digitized economy. No? Para malaman ninyo ano ba itong permanent establishment at kailan kinukonsider na permanent establishment yung isang foreign company with business activity dito sa Pilipinas. No? Ano yung mga requirements. At we will discuss also the tax treaties kasi sa tax treaties nandyan din yung permanent establishment. So kailan? Friday? Anong date? June
25.
Okay, so June 25 po, 10 to 12 also, our seminar on transfer pricing and permanent establishment. No? And you have to disclose the name ng foreign related parties. Ano ba siya, ang nature of relationship mo? Siya ba yung ultimate parent mo, the immediate parent, or the surrogate parent? No? May mga ganyan na eh. Bakit siya naging surrogate? Kasi siya yung naging, hindi siya talaga parent, pero parang parent na rin siya. Kasi siya yung nagre-report, no? Yung report ng group, siya yung taga-report. Kaya naging surrogate parent. Country of residence, kung saan siya incorporated. Alam niyo pag nakita kayo na yung country of residence ng halimbawa parent company ninyo is in a tax haven countries, red light na kaagad dyan sa seminar, no? Kasi yung country of residence ng isang company, lalo na kung wala siyang physical presence doon at saka tax haven countries, no, walang substance, pwede yan i-disallow. No? As if there is no such company exist. And then the foreign TIN, yung TIN niya doon sa registered address niya kung saan siya na ka-register. And then the local TIN dito sa Pilipinas. Okay, so with permanent establishment in the Philippines, yes or no? We will elaborate the permanent establishment on Friday. And then the TIN of PE, kung registered na yung PE dito sa Pilipinas. And then, ang B is the domestic related parties. So, sino tong mga domestic related parties? The name, nature of relationship, TIN, and the registered address. No? So, sino yung mga domestic related parties dito sa Pilipinas? Ito yung mga companies registered in the Philippines na members also of the group. No? So, kasama sila. So, ano yung relationship nyo? Related parties. Ano, paano? Supplier ka, halimbawa, nung isang related parties mo. Ikaw yung supplier. Ikaw yung nasa delivery. No? So, ilagay mo dyan yung nature of relationship and then the TIN ng company and then the registered address. For part 3, the related party transactions, sale of goods and provision of services. So name of related party that you sold the goods and then kung kanino ka nag-provide naman ng services. No? Description and type of transactions, the amount in foreign currency, how much, amount in peso. Were you granted treaty benefits in the source country? Mayroon ka bang, nag-avail ka ba ng tax treaty benefits? Income tax withheld by the income payer. So pag sinabi mo na mayroon kang income tax withheld, show also the withholding tax certificate. No? Attach mo din yan. Letter B, purchases of goods and services except those provided by key management personnel. So ito na yung purchase ng goods and services. Nature of related party. Description and type of transactions, kung ano man yun. And then we have the amount in foreign currency, kung applicable. Amount in peso. No? And then did the income recipient claim treaty benefits, yes or no? Was a TTRA filed, therefore? Meron na naman tayong bagong requirement na bagong ruling dito sa tax treaty, claim of tax treaty benefits. No? Was a TTRA filed, therefore? Yes or no? Income tax withheld by the income payer. Okay, so is the income payment attributable to PE, yes or no? So very important pa rin yung PE or the permanent establishment. Kasi pag wala, hindi ma-establish na may permanent establishment ka dito sa Pilipinas, you're not taxable. But if the government will be able to prove that you have a PE or permanent establishment, then you can be taxed. No? Page 2, information return on transactions with related party, no? Domestic and or foreign and or domestic. No? So we have the TIN and the registered name. And then the continuation of part 3. No? Loans granted to or non-trade receivable from related parties. So ito yung mga loans granted, pautang. So sino ba yung pautang? Name of related party, opening balance. Loans granted during the taxable period, terms and conditions, outstanding balance as of the end of the taxable period, the provision for doubtful debts, and then the bad debts expense recognized during the period. No? And then we have the loans received from non-trade payable to related parties. Name of related parties, opening balance, loans received during the taxable year, terms and conditions, standing balances of the end of the taxable year. No? And then we have the other related party transaction, excluding compensations paid to key management personnel. No? So name of related party, description and type of transactions, amount in foreign currency, and amount in peso. No? So yun yung related party transactions. And then we have the additional disclosure. Ito essay type lang to, no? And then explain nyo lang. Brief business overview of the ultimate and immediate parents of the company. So you disclose here the name, the address, and their activities. And then brief business overview or functional file of the taxpayer. So you have to explain there the functions. No? Ano ba yung ginagawa ng taxpayer mo? No? Then the business overview. Has there been any change in your functional profile during the taxable period? If yes, provide details. Nag-change ka ba from full-fledged manufacturer, naging commission ka na lang? No? Letter D, has there been any change in your ownership structure during the taxable period? If yes, provide details. No? Ano yung ownership structure? Halimbawa, yung mga old na stockholders, binenta na nila lahat yung kanilang shares of stocks. No? Do you undergo business restructuring during the taxable year or for the last 5 years? If yes, provide details. No? Ano tong business restructuring structure during the year? Ito yung sabi ko sa inyo na regulated ng Philippine Competition Commission or the equivalent ng antitrust law dito sa Pilipinas. No? Okay. Page 3, we have the continuation of part 4. Ito pa rin yung say, no? Have you prepared a transfer pricing documentation for the related party transactions as prescribed under Revenue Regulations 2-2013? The details of the TPD include but are not limited to the following: organizational structure, nature of the business industry and market condition, control transactions, assumptions, strategies and policies, cost contribution arrangement, comparability, functional and risk analysis, selection of the transfer pricing method, application of the transfer pricing method, background documents, and index to documents. No? So yun yung content ng related party analysis. No? Do you have an advanced pricing arrangement with your related parties? Yes or no? And then this form is signed under the penalties of perjury. No? Sinong magsasign dito? Signature over printed name of taxpayers, authorized representative, tax agent. No? Indicate title and TIN. No? So yun po yung BIR Form 1709. Okay. So this BIR Form 1709 should be filed together with your annual income tax return. But remember that we have guidelines, we have threshold kung sino lang pwedeng mag-attach nito or mag-comply with the BIR Form 1709 because hindi po lahat are required. But in the event that you are not required to attach BIR Form number 1709 in your income tax return, you have to disclose the reason in your notes to financial statement. No? So with that, I would like to say thank you. And let's have the last poll question. Please answer. No? After that, Hari, we still have our question and answer, no? May mga question na ba sila? Okay. So please answer the poll question, and after that, we will have our question and answer. No? After that, Hari, we still have our question and answer, no? May mga question na ba sila? Okay. So please answer the poll question, and after that, we will have our question and answer. Okay, so let's continue with our question and answer. Okay, Hari.
Yung first question, ma'am po, galing kay, wait lang po Mary A.
Okay.
Apo. If same owners po ang companies, same industry, but yung isa is trading, yung
Okay.
isa ay services,
Okay.
considered na po ba na related parties?
Yes po. Yes po. Consider siya as related party. Why? Kasi if you try to look at the definition ng mga related parties, sila tong owned by same person or same interest. No? So consider po sila related parties even if yung companies have different functions. No? Kasi yung isa, services, yung isa, yung trading. Pero since owned sila by same person, consider pa rin sila as related parties.
Galing pa rin po sa kanya, ma'am, kay Ma'am Mary.
Okay.
Apo. If all companies are located in the same country, need pa rin po ba mag-prepare ng forms and documentary requirements?
Yes po. Yun yung sinasabi natin na local files, no? Kung halimbawa dito lang sila lahat sa Pilipinas kasi domestic lang sila, kailangan pa rin po. Halimbawa, the group of companies, 42 companies, yun ang sinasabi natin na conglomerates, no? 42 group of companies owned by same owners and involved in different industries. Consider pa rin sila as related parties. Okay. Next.
Next, ma'am, galing kay Ma'am Mary Jane Doroy.
Okay.
Ano po ang advantage at disadvantage ng transfer pricing sa mga multi-companies? At ano po ang mga policies?
Actually, if you try to look at doon sa mga existing na, in some countries kasi just like kung anong citizenship ng companies, halimbawa European siya, mahigpit ang documentation requirements ng transfer pricing sa Europe, no? Kasi may sarili silang batas, yung European countries. And pag sinabi natin na advantages, yes, may advantages yung documentary requirements because if you comply with the documentation requirements ng transfer pricing during the transfer pricing audit, hindi ka na mahirapan. Why? Kasi ang gagawin mo, kuha ka lang ng kuha ng documents mo because you are already ready na. And yun ang advantage mo. Ano naman yung disadvantage? Very voluminous ang transfer pricing documentation. And it is burdensome to the taxpayers. Why? Kasi lahat ng ginagawa mo dyan should be documented. And speaking of policies, dapat ang policy mo should conform with the arm's length principle. At ano yung arm's length principle mo? Halimbawa, example, in the drafting of contracts, you have to make your contracts, even if the contracts that you executed is between related parties, you have to think that provisions in the contract conforms with the arm's length principle, which is, ang sabi natin, ang arm's length principle that the transactions between related parties should be the same with the independent parties. Halimbawa na lang, yung use of the building, no? Yung isang related parties mo, owned by one person, same owner. Same owner lang naman to. Bakit kailan pa magrenta dito sa building owned by the owner itself, no? For purposes ng doing business and for purposes of taxation, dapat nakadokumento yan and dapat same yan with independent parties. No? So ano dapat? May renta. And how much is the renta? Hindi naman yan pwede na peso lang yung renta mo. It should be the same with the rental rates of the rental in the vicinity or the adjacent properties. Hindi naman pwede na, since related parties, 13 pesos lang per square meter yung parenta ko. When in fact, sa iba or sa adjacent properties, 200 pesos na per square meter. No? So it should be same with the independent parties. That's why when you make your contract or lease agreement, it should be the same with the independent parties. So yan ang magiging transfer pricing policies mo. So anong policies mo ngayon with the rental income and the rental expense nung isa? It should be Same with the adjacent properties so that it will conforms with the arm's length principle. Next.
Next, ma'am, galing kay Sir Carlo Magno.
Okay.
Apo, if the large taxpayer failed to attach required submission in relation to 1709, what will be the penalty? Is the company allowed to amend the ITR by attaching the 1709?
During the during the transfer pricing audit, i-require talaga sila, no? Whether nag-attach sila o hindi, they will be required to submit a transfer pricing analysis and also the 1709. If they failed, pwede naman silang mag-submit late, no? But of course, since this is an information return, meron na siyang late filing, no? And that late filing will be determined by the office themselves, no? Kung mag-attach na kayo na late, no? Kasi meron silang schedule of penalties na sometimes ang schedule of penalties na yan, binibase nila sa gross receipts, no? Or sa amount na nandyan sa return. Okay, so you may file late, but meron na po penalties. Next.
Next, ma'am, galing po kay Ma'am Mary Jane.
Okay.
Sa presentation po ng reports, what if taxpayer po nagkaroon ng mali sa presentation during audit? Ano po ang dapat gawin? May penalty po ba agad or may case na po?
I-discuss nyo yan kasi may deliberation naman at saka discussion with the examiner. So, i-discuss po ninyo sa examiner and pwede nyo namang i-amend, no? Pwede, but it should be na yung mali ninyo is not deliberate or intentional. Kasi kung ang pagkakamali nyo is intentional, then it will be tantamount to fraud. And if it has a material effect in your financial statement, then depende na din po yan sa examiner kung paano nyo siya i-amend, no? Of course, yung during the amendment, may mga tax consequences yan that you are going to pay. Kagaya ng mga deficiency, halimbawa sa other taxes, hindi na income na lang ang mangyayari dyan. Kasi sa atin, all taxes, no? All taxes po ang audit, kasama na yung transfer pricing audit. Next.
Next po, ma'am, galing kay Sir Ryan Deocades.
Okay.
Apo, if a registered sole proprietor has a sales transaction in a corporation and that sole proprietor has a significant control over the corporation,
Okay.
is there a significant related party transactions?
Yes, very much. Kasi ang related parties, hindi lang naman corporation and corporations, can also be single proprietor. Kaya tingnan nyo sa 1709 na form, meron din siyang individual, no, or corporation na information. No, so it can be that the related party transactions can be between individual and corporations.
Sabi niya, ma'am, yung sole proprietor na yun is the CEO of the company.
Yes, much more so. Related parties po talaga siya. No?
Tapos, ma'am, follow up po ni Sir Ryan, what are the potential transfer pricing risks and tax adjustment na pwede yung corporation ma-expose?
Halimbawa sa kasi napakarami niyan eh, no? Napakarami niyan. Halimbawa na lang sa sales, no? Or halimbawa sa pricing ng raw materials niya, no? So pwedeng diyan manggagaling. And then sa pricing ng raw materials, ito na lang yung example ko sa GlaxoSmithKline, ha. Saan yun nangyari? Sa pricing ng raw materials niya. And then ano yung transfer pricing method that was used? The comparable uncontrolled price method. They compare the price of the related party internal comparables, parehong related parties, no? Paano yung nangyari? Yung supplier ng Santac active ingredients between the related parties in Canada, kinumpare nila the supplier of that Santac active ingredient related party in Egypt, napakalaki ng disparity, no? Sa Canada, ang raw materials, the amount ng raw materials is between $600 per kilo to $1,200. Kinumpare nila doon sa price ng same active ingredients also supplied by a related party between 200 lang to $600 per kilo. Oh, so nakapakalaki ng disparity. Sa raw materials pa lang yan kasi manufacturing company. So with that, ilang years yung under transfer pricing audit? 5 years. Oh? So during those years, ilang kilo ang na-purchase ng Canada? Inano yun ng court, ha? May deliberation sa court, na-resolve ng court. At ano sabi ng court? Yung final verdict ng court is to adjust, no? Is to adjust the price per kilo. Binawasan siya ng $25 per kilo. So very conservative yung judgment ng court. So since binawasan siya ng $25 per kilo, so nilakihan mo ang gross profit. Of course, nilakihan mo yung tax base. So yung effect noon sa 25 pesos per kilo na raw materials, yun yung adjustment ng net income sa GlaxoSmithKline Canada. So doon sila nagbayad ng deficiency income tax, which cost them billions of dollars. Yan pa lang po, sa raw materials pa lang yan. Posible din naman yan na sa product na mismo. Yung ibenta mo na yung product to the related parties, ito lang. Pero dapat sa independent parties, ito. Sa rental naman, sa services, ito yung possible adjustment. Yung rental mo between related parties is 13 pesos per square meter. Yung rental of the adjacent properties is 200 per square meter. So, how much is the possible adjustment? 200 less 13, edi 187, no? 187. Ilang square meter yan? At saka, how many months? No? Kung ang contract ninyo is 5 years, edi yung per contract pa lang na yan, pwede mo nang makompute yung adjustment yan. And then the result of the adjustment is already income to the company. No? Passive income yan, so wala yan deductions. So net income na talaga yan, subject to tax. No? So ganun po yung possible adjustment. At ang dami pa. When you try to look at the mga transfer pricing cases, no? Try to read transfer pricing cases. Iba-iba yung mga issues diyan na alam mo, minsan ang feeling ko parang masaya kasi iba-ibang issues. Minsan ang issue nila is the factoring na accounts receivable, no? So marami. O minsan nasa inventory, no? Minsan nasa loans, nasa granting of loans. Yung sometimes, yung receivables nila, binibenta pa nila na hindi naman kailangan, sobra-sobra yung pera nila. So doon magkakaroon ng adjustment that will, of course, result to additional income subject to tax. Next.
Next, ma'am, galing kay Marion Monique Silvestre.
Okay.
Is a sales or service contract pricing agreement between a Philippine company providing services or sales to a related party in a foreign country required?
Yes, yes po. Kasi yun yung mga sinasabi na cross-border transactions. Required po. Required. Why? Because that is the source. Sabi ko na nga sa inyo, that is the contract agreements between related parties. No? And usually nangyayari yan sa mga BPOs, no? Yung mga business process outsourcing, that they are using the cost plus method at how much is the plus. Halimbawa, reimbursement of expenses lang yan dito sa Pilipinas. And then, how much is the plus? Minsan 7%, no? Which is not arm's length. Kasi ang findings ko dyan sa mga BPO should be profit split. Why? Because their transactions are very interrelated or highly integrated. Why highly integrated? Kasi support services lang yun dito sa Pilipinas. The income is nasa ibang bansa. So, since you are a participant in the provision of services, dapat participant ka rin in the profit. Kaya nga dapat ang mangyayari dyan, profit split. No? Okay. Next.
Next po, galing kay Mary A. Ano po ang effective cost method for transfer pricing for trading and for services?
Depende. Kasi kagaya po ng sample natin na Santac, ang sinubject doon sa transfer pricing audit is only one product. So, anong ginamit doon? Comparable uncontrolled price method. Very specific lang sila doon sa isang product. So, anong kinumpare is the price. Pagka halimbawa naman reseller ka, ang pwedeng gamitin mo na method is the resale price method because you buy the product and then resale it to another company. Then, pwedeng resale price method. Kung provision naman of services and then reimbursement of expenses ka lang, the cost plus method. If you are gumagamit ka na ng intangibles, no? May mga intangibles na involved in the provision of services or in the sale of services or sale of goods. May mga intangibles na involved, then the transactional net margin method is recommended. Pagka wala talagang information about internal or external comparables and then the activities of the company is highly integrated, then anong gagamitin natin na method? The profit split method. Next.
Apo, next ma'am galing kay Ma'am Rosalina Tune.
Okay.
Company A is services here in the Philippines.
Okay.
Company B is in Canada, same business features.
Okay.
Services pa rin, corporation lahat.
Okay.
Considered ba na party related?
Yes, ma'am. Yes po. Kasi, pero hindi ko masabi na related parties. Same ba sila ng owner o independent na contractor lang siya nung company sa Canada. Kung same owner sila, then consider sila na related parties. Pero kung hindi, then hindi po sila related parties. No? Hindi sila subject to transfer pricing.
Next po ma'am, galing kay Marion Monique Silvestre.
Okay.
Are those affiliates or subsidiary under the same parent but with no transaction in sales and purchases considered related party?
Yes.
Should it be disclosed in the audited financial statement?
Yes po. Disclose nyo sa notes to financial statements kasi di ba sa 1709 natin there is a threshold. So kung wala kang sales, only disclosure to the financial statement. And the reason why you are not required to attach bearer form 1709.
If a Philippine company rendering services to its related party outside Philippines with existing contract,
Yes.
required to withhold taxes on these sales required in the Philippines?
Yes. Lalo-lalo na you have to consult the tax treaties, no? Kaya diyan na papasok. That's why meron na rin tayong topic na transfer pricing and tax treaties, no? But should be next week. No, para malaman natin na how do we consult the tax treaties and the withholding tax requirements. No? Kasi yung withholding tax requirements required yan by the local legislation and that should be respected by the tax treaties. No? Kung halimbawa, since expenses yan ng Philippines and then the Philippines require that all your expenses, especially if top 20,000 withholding ka, large taxpayer ka, lahat ng expenses mo required na magkaroon ng withholding and then nagkaroon ka ng purchases na foreign, hindi ka nag-withhold, then you can be questioned. No?
Does it mean all foreign related parties must have TIN in Philippines?
Must have?
TIN.
Actually, sa bago, requirement na sila, no? Especially kung US yan, yung mayroon ng FATCA ang US, yung Foreign Account Tax Compliance Act, no? But expect na hindi lang US because of yung sabi natin na digitized economy, because of the globalization, magkaroon na tayo ng global tax, expect na meron na lahat. At hindi lang yun, yung global tax identification TIN, na tax identification number. Magbabago na yung landscape natin ng taxation eh. No? Expect. That's why we are preparing for that. Transfer pricing is just one tool for audit. Kaya yung documentation is dapat ready tayo. No?
Next ma'am, galing kay Sir Carlo Magno.
Okay.
Sa ngayon ma'am, may nakikita ba kayo na loopholes sa transfer pricing na can be take advantage?
Loophole sa transfer pricing? Marami. Marami. Anyway, yung loophole sa taxation, marami yan. At saka kung tutuusin mo, ang daming mga tax experts, no? That's why one of the um, initiative na ginagawa ng OECD ngayon is to run after the tax professionals who are professional enablers in order to defeat the payment of taxes. Kaya nga sino na hinahabol nila? The professional enablers. Maraming loopholes, hindi yan nawawala. No? Especially na mas marami yung matatalino na syempre binabayaran yan sila ng taxpayers and the taxpayers can afford to hire consultants, no? That's why sabi nga doon sa yung pinapakita ko sa inyo na um, yung sa Al Jazeera, Hari, yung sa tax haven natin, yung about transfer pricing, yung reason, no? Anong sabi doon? If you can afford to pay or to hire tax consultants, then payment of taxes is just an option.
Next, ma'am, galing kay Sir Michael Perez.
Okay.
How's related party costs being audited?
Related parties being audited. Ang tawag po dyan, transfer pricing audit. And we have RAMO 1-2019. Yan na po yung guidelines natin in conducting transfer pricing audit dito sa Pilipinas. No? And ang sabi ko nga sa inyo, the transfer pricing audit here in the Philippines is included in the regular audit. So that the BR will not issue you different letters of authority, but once you receive a letter of authority, the letter of authority here in the Philippines is for all taxes. So kasama na rin dyan yung audit ng transfer pricing. And during the regular audit, and it can be found that you have related party transactions, then along with it, you will be subjected to a related parties audit, which is the transfer pricing audit. And the documentation requirements for a transfer pricing audit will be required for submission ng company mo. Next.
Apo. Next, ma'am, galing kay Ma'am Mary A.
Okay.
If company A sells to customers, company A gets materials in company B and
Okay.
labor to company C.
Okay.
Is profit split okay? Company A, B, and C are related party.
Pwedeng profit split, no? Kasi highly integrated sila, no? So profit split is okay. Pwede rin comparable and control. In a way sa atin po, dito sa Pilipinas, sabi ko nga sa inyo, the RR 2-2013 requires that you apply all the methods and then you recommend the best method, no? So apply mo muna yung 5 methods na yon and then you recommend the best method. So in that case, pwede mo i-recommend yung profit split. Next.
Opo, ma'am. Ito, ma'am, galing kay Ma'am Rosalina Tune.
Okay.
Ma'am, pwede po ba magkaroon ng sample case ng party-related transfer pricing activity?
Okay. Saan ka kukuha niyan? Try to read famous transfer pricing cases. No? Andyan yan. It is well explained. Kaya pag tiningnan ninyo dyan sa YouTube natin, puro ano yan, puro cases yan. No? Tingnan nyo yung case of Coca-Cola. Napakaganda po na case niyan. Altera, the Veritas case, those are landmark cases. And yung GlaxoSmithKline na cases. Napakaganda po ng mga cases niyan. No? At saka dyan mo matutuhan. Yung mga first na presentation natin dyan sa YouTube channel natin, puro mga cases yan ng Cameco, ng PHP Billiton, no? Lahat yan, application yan ng transfer pricing na napakaganda na ng resolution ng court. Kasi dumaan na ng court eh. Oh, tsaka hindi lang yun, battle of the experts na sila. Diyan ako nagagandahan sa transfer pricing kasi lalo na yung nakarating na ng Supreme Court, nakarating na ng ilang taon na, no? It took the courts na mga 5 years to decide, no? Talagang battle of the brain na talaga siya. Na may mga sabihin mo na talagang may logic, no? Kaya sabi ko, itong transfer pricing talagang gawa to ng mga tao na talagang nag-iisip, no? Okay. Next. At saka dyan po, tingnan ninyo yung transfer pricing guidelines natin, yung 2017. Napakarami pong examples dyan. No? Okay, next.
Next, ma'am. Galing kay Sir Ryan.
Okay.
Ma'am, do we need to disclose the related parties in the notes to financial statement?
Yes, kailangan po. Sabi dito sa 34-2020, pagka hindi ka kasama doon sa threshold that you are going to submit the BIR Form 1709 with your annual income tax return, you have to disclose in the notes to financial statement why is it that the reason why you are not required to submit BIR Form 1709.
Ito, ang
Next.
follow-up daw po ni Ma'am Rosalina.
Okay.
If same owners bali subject as a related party, if different owners not required to submit
Yes.
1709,
Yes.
but required to submit local BIR compliance, tama po ba?
Yes, tama po. Kasi ang local BIR compliance, iba naman yan sa related parties, no? So kung hindi kayo related parties, kasi different companies, unrelated naman yung transactions niya. So you are not going to submit the BIR Form 1709 or the related party transactions on transfer pricing, but for the local compliance, you are required, no? At ang dami din nun. Mga local compliance natin, just like sa withholding, sa VAT, no? Iba-iba yan. Next. Okay, so I would like to say thank you po sa mga subscribers natin. Thank you very much for subscribing. And please, bukas yung ating comparability analysis and adjustments. And then sa Thursday, yung free webinar natin on digitized economy. And sa Friday, yung permanent establishment natin. Next week naman, yung sa ating international taxation and meron pang isa eh. Meron pa tayong dalawa next week and this week, tatlo pa. No? So please bear with us. Anyway, sharing of knowledge po ito na alam naman natin na nakakatulong sa actual na natin po na work as an accountant. No? So with that, I would like to say thank you very much and let's call it a day.